Welcome back, compadres. Welcome back to another episode of Due Date, the true legend of Dusty Cantina, gunslinger, librarian. Chapter 8, Dusty Hits the Trail. Well, as you might have gathered by now, the good folk of Dry Gulch saw storytelling not so much as a spectator sport, but a participatory event. It was not so much as if they were sitting in one of them highfalutin theaters, all nice and quiet like, whilst the storyteller dazzled the audience with his or her verbal expertise. No, they saw it more as a community process where all the folks listening to the story felt free to add their own 2 cents, whether it was germane to the point at hand or not. Public speaking was not so much a solo endeavor as more like a barn raising. Being from these parts, Dusty was familiar with the custom, and she might have been happy to allow folks to meander a bit from the point, except she's were aiming to get some pertinent information from the mayor. Dusty reckoned that she needed to herd the mayor real gently into telling his story. Well, gently except for shooting him, of course. So, anyways, Dusty said with a nod of encouragement, I gets the gist of this, that this one-legged librarian told you to fill out this little blue call slip with one of them little yeller pencils he had tied to his wagon. What happened next? Next, said the mayor, resuming his narrative, this feller made a big deal about being sure I wrote the Sioux Dock number right. He made me use this big red book to get at it. Made you use it or showed you how to use it? Medium Mama asked quickly. There's a world of difference between the two. Well, he didn't hold a gun to my head like some people. Mayor Percy allowed a bit of peevedness to get in his voice. Not a lot, mind you, considering Dusty was still armed and he weren't. But it were there if you're listening for it. Dusty got real quiet, and her hand over her pistol got real still. But, Mayor Percy hastened to add, judging it best to move the story along, that one-legged librarian showed me how to use the red book and explained the philosophy behind assigning Sioux Dock numbers. Sounds like a mighty fine bit of customer service, said Dusty, her hand and the rest of the saloon relaxing. Reminds me the way Pa would have done it. Her eyes narrowed as if she were doing a powerful amount of thinking. Say, said Honest Mike to Medium Mama, didn't your ma used to have one of them big red books to help her in classifying them government documents? She surely did, Medium Mama said with understandable pride. Ma always said that classifying government publications was the toughest thing a cataloger could do, especially once she got into those occasional publications. Now, what I could never figure out, said Lonesome Paco, as if this had long been a burr under his saddle, is why you got to make your main entry card from a corporate name field when you know darn well that corporation's gonna change names faster than a red-tailed hawk changing directions floating in the air. Heads shook round the room with a mutter of shared misery. Plumb crazy the way I sees it, said Three Teeth. There you have a nice run of statistical series like stream flow in Platte County by year. I mean, all nice and geographical like one next to the other, year after year. And because the issuing agency is the Bureau of Water Management, you gots to file it under the B's for Bureau. Then some dang fools elect a new president or governor or some such, and they decide to call it the Department of Rivers Flowing Over Rocks or whatever have you. And the next year, the exact same document has to be filed under D's for department. Craziest system you ever did see. That always annoyed Ma, said Medium Mama. She'd have to pencil in scope notes and see also references in her red book. Ma hated the way it made the page look, even though she had the most legible handywriting you ever did see. Looking back, I reckon Ma was always more of a Markham and Parkham type of cataloger, Dusty recalled with a smile. Remember when Ma said, if only there were some way to look up her file records not dependent on physical location, or indeed needing a physical card, said Medium Mama. Then there wouldn't be no need for a main entry card, and you could have as many entry points as you wanted. Ma was always funny like that, said Dusty. I remember her and Pa sitting together on the front porch for hours at a time, talking about cataloging and watching the sun go down. My point is, Three Teeth said a bit louder as he felt the attention shifting away from him. Someone ought to go into that superintendent of document filler's office and tell him to stop messing around and changing what don't need no changing. You tell 'em, Three Teeth, said Seymour, his enthusiasm as strong as his level of intoxication, which was high. He sure ain't my superintendent of documents. Sure as Sam Hill, I ain't never voted for him. By the answering roar, it was clear that no one else in the room had voted for him either. Before a delegation could be assembled to go a-calling on the presumably hard-working bureaucrat to discuss the issue, Dusty rather leisurely pulled her pistol and added another hole to the ceiling. The room went quiet. Honest Mike observed, you know, you fellers don't always have to use my place to hash things out. Folks could tell that Dusty was eager to move the tale forward on account of the way she kept her pistol in her hand. So that's your whole story, Mayor? Yes, ma'am. By this point, the mayor seemed a mite embarrassed about the mess he was making on the saloon's soft pine floor. He was discreetly trying to wipe up his blood and other stuff with the bottom of his boot, like he was hoping no one would notice. But with the general dusty nature of the floors in any dry gulch saloon. Best he could hope for was to make a muddy mess. Dusty, leastways, didn't call attention to it. Clearly, her mind was someplace else. I reckon I'd better go find this one-legged librarian for winter sets in the high country and hear the rest of the story from him. I got me a suspicion this one-legged librarian is my pa. Medium Mama said, and we're coming with you. She took off the apron she wore. I hereby resign as social director of the Dry Gulch Saloon Literary Society and Drinking Club. Come along, boy. She grabbed the Lariat Kid and began to follow Dusty. But, Mama, protested Honest Mike, what about your career here? How are we going to know what book to read next? Asked Forgetting Henry. And who's going to set up the social calendar? Asked Lonesome Paco. And what not? Asked Handsome Dan. Now you men listen to me. Mama turned as if to give them a good piece of her mind. I have appreciated my time here as your social director, sure. But if my pa is out there, I'm not going to sit around here lollygagging with the likes of you. I thought he was killed in that house fire, but if there's a chance he's alive, I owe it to my boy here. She hugged the Lariat Kid to her side to look for his grandpa. The men in the saloon suddenly found their boots interesting to look at. The only movement in the room was the tobacco smoke drifting up through them holes in the roof, and the sunlight dancing down through the dust. Maybe all that dust was why not a single eye in the place was dry at that moment. Honest Mike began to wipe another glass. We do appreciate what all you done for us, Medium Mama, he began. And I know I speak for us all when I say anytime you want to come back, there will be a place for you here. Mama said, ah, shoot, you big lugs. You don't need me to tell you who Consuela, the bandit queen of California, is gonna end up with. Like I always say, you just gotta trust the narrative. Come along, boy. It's time we be gone. The kid hitched up his pants as he picked up his lariat and scrambled to catch up with his ma. Yes, ma'am. Bye, gents. 2 bits. Dusty smiled a bit as she waited for mother and son to join her at the door to the saloon. Let's go find our pa, Dusty said as they left the saloon. He paused to take a look down at the mayor and the spreading stain beneath his feet. And you might want to get that hand looked at real pronto, Mayor, she offered amiably to the mayor. Wait too long, and it will turn nasty on you. And that's the story of how Dusty, the gunslinger, and her sister, the saloon hostess, and her boy, the Lariat Kid, set off to find the one-legged librarian, the fella they figured was their pa. Now it might look like the odds were stacked against them as they rode out of town. The high country was powerful big, and a one-legged librarian can be hard to find. But me, I got my money on Dusty and her family to figure things out and set things right. And as the doors to the saloon swung shut, Three Teeth got a puzzled look on his face and said, "Now who's gonna clean the soft pine floors?" Everyone looked at Honest Mike, who looked at the mayor. "You bleed, you clean," said Honest Mike, and handed the mayor a mop and bucket. That seemed fair to most everyone in the place. It's sort of become the motto of the saloon. Well, that's it for this episode of Due Date, the true legend of Dusty Cantina, Gunslinger, Librarian. This episode was written by Dan McLaughlin and Margaret Elin Schmidt. Read by Dan McLaughlin and produced by the fine folk at Totally Honest Productions. Got something on your mind? Shoot us an email at djng@earthlink.net. That sort of concludes this particular chapter in the Tales of Dusty. Dusty gotta get back to the library and put them books in order. Any rate, we're heading for the trails and hope to see you again soon. Remember to like us where you heard us, and see ya at the library. Bye-bye.